Happy Thursday, rock lovers. Welcome to tonight's Cut and Chat, a live and interactive rock cutting and polishing demo. My name is Lynette Kong from Highland Park's marketing team, and thank you for joining us. Tonight is all about cab placement. Choosing the right placement when cutting cabochons from gemstones is crucial for maximizing the stone's beauty and value. Proper placement highlights the rock's best color, clarity, optical effects, and enhance its overall appearance. Proper placement, oh, sorry. This is your chance to ask your technical questions, get answers from specific challenges that you're encountering in your shop, and even share your tips and tricks, all these while having tons of fun. All right, let's see who we have here tonight. Hi, Ed. Hi, Daniel. Hi, Bruce. Hey, Rodney. Hi, everyone. We would also like to invite everyone watching us online to join us here in our VIP Zoom room by signing up using the link that you are seeing. Before we begin, here's a short teaser of what we have in store for you tonight. We're super excited to get this cut and chat started, so let's dive right into some guidelines. There are two ways to ask your questions. First, you can put your questions on the chat. The chat box can be found at the bottom of your screen. Make sure to send your chat to everyone so we can see them. A member of the HPL team will read your questions to Zeke out loud. For those who are watching us on Facebook, you can enter your questions on the comment section, and someone from the HPL team will read your questions to Zeke. Second, to make this cut and chat more interactive, you can ask Zeke your question yourself. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a button that says Reactions. Click on that button, and you will see an option that says Raise Hand. When you raise your hand, a member of the HPL team will unmute you, and you will receive a prompt saying the host is asking you to unmute. Click on Unmute, and you will be able to ask Zeke your question. After you ask your question, we will lower your hand and mute you so the next person in line can ask his or her question. If you have a new question later during the show, you can raise your hand again. We'll be alternating unmuting people and asking questions from the chat so everyone gets a fair chance of their questions to be answered. For the Wheel of Fortune giveaway, if the initial winner isn't here, we will re-spin the wheel until a winner who is present in the room is selected. So now get ready to learn cutting and polishing techniques, ask your technical questions, and have tons of fun. To officially start tonight's cut and chat, please welcome our mineral maestro, Zeke Dalrymple.
Good evening, all. How are you doing tonight? Hey, Ed. Hi, Kim. Hey, Peta. Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Kathy. It's great to see y'all. Hey, Kate. Well, I'm excited. I've got the new CB6 here, too, so I'm really happy to play with that. We do have a couple extras. Hey, Jack. So we'll, you know, showing those off tonight. Hey, Kent. And then I've got a whole pile of slabs and cut pieces here that we can look at and some awesome stuff to show you guys. Because we'll be talking about cab placement, things I would and wouldn't do, shapes that go orient well. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited to show you guys that stuff. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a teaser. Let's switch over to the other camera and show you the CB6 before we get started. I'll just give you a brief teaser and we'll go into it more later. But isn't that a nice looking machine? I'm so excited about it. I already got a diamond plate on this side. and the cerium charged up on this side. So we'll have to play with that a little bit later, but let's start with looking at some slabs. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to stop me and we'll talk about them more. I do have some templates here so that we can look at some stuff. All right, let me get the phone adjusted so that I can see here. And then as a general rule, I tend to cut more free forms, but templates are great, especially if you feel that your free forms are not as imaginative as you'd like them to be. Um, some people, they have a hard time imagining a shape on the rock. We do have these awesome templates. I think we have these in stock. I know we just got a bunch. I like that shape right there. That'll be cool. Hey, Robert. So, and then, well, see, I actually don't like Sharpie, using like a Sharpie, because then you have a thick band on there and it's harder to get a detailed line. So I like these little aluminum rods, and Sherman's gonna tell you all where to order these at some point. He said he knew where to get them. I've only ever seen these just laying around. I've never seen one for sale, but basically it's just a little piece of aluminum, and I actually just sharpen these on the cabbing wheels. And these work really well because they give you a nice fine line when you draw on the stone. Like, so I just put a line across that. You get this nice fine, and then the metallic doesn't wash off. So it works really well for putting a cab on there. Like here, I'll do a slab here. We got this piece of tiger eye. It also works wet. I'm glad you guys all know where to get these. That's awesome. Yep, it works. Aluminum nail would work. It does work on darker stone. So I got this piece of tiger eye. Now this piece, if you look at it, I'm just thinking about how I would cut a stone out of it. And this is definitely the best color in here. Now, I don't like this little line going down. I can't tell if that's a fracture or not, but I don't like that there. So I would put my cab right here in the center. But let me show you guys how well these aluminum pieces of aluminum work. Now you get this nice fine line. It's not thick like a Sharpie, and it's reflective. So when you're working at an angle, it actually works better to see that too. But the problem is if you use a Sharpie and you have a thick band here, then it becomes hard to tell if you're grinding, like especially if you're doing like a round cab, if you've gone too far. And this does not wash off when you're cabbing. So this is really nice. And it's worked on every stone I've ever tried it on. So I'm a big fan of using aluminum as your marker. Some people use brass, but I prefer aluminum. So, all right, well, let's get started talking about, I was looking at some pieces here. Some pieces naturally just tell you kind of what shape they want to be. Now, on this, making the grain go up and down, I was just because I just how I prefer that. You could do it the other way. You could put the bands going this way, and if I was going to do it, I'd put them right there in the middle like that. It is upside down. Well, I mean, it depends on how you put it. But notice how I put that darker line right through the tip there, right in the middle, separating it. Gives it really a fantastic contrast as you do it. But doing it this way will actually make the cab look taller. So it depends on what you're going for there. Really cutting a cabochon out of a slab like this, all you're really doing is framing a picture for somebody to see when you cut your stone. That is essentially what you're doing is you're just picking an area of the stone to frame a picture. So it's a lot like doing photography where you want your leading lines to be, how you want the piece to look when you're done. And then the other thing we're going to look at is fractures. Like this piece of tourmaline in quartz. Get this wet so I can show this to you guys. You can see on here there is a good sized fracture running right through there, and I wouldn't want that in the center of my piece. So a lot of times what I'll actually do, and this is where I would use Sharpie, is if I'm gonna cab this whole piece, I would take it and I would just mark right across that fracture. So I know that that is going to be where I put the saw blade. I've got another one going up through the here right here. So I know that I'm going to cut through those lines. So on this piece, I really like this area here. Now I just have to find a shape that orients well with this mass. This is actually a good one that an oval would be a good shape for, even though I'm not a huge fan of ovals. As a general rule, I tend to go for more teardrops. So for me, I would tend to do something more like that, where I'm putting that fracture right up against where I'm on the edge there where I'm cutting, and then the tourmaline oriented in the bottom like that. Then I got just a hint of the green at the top there. You can see that works really well for getting a nice fine line on there. Get a little hint of the green up here. You may get a little bit of pink, but I doubt you'll get any pink in that. And this still leaves me to do a cab out of this area here. Hey, Sarah. So, and then I'm this way I can cut right through these fractures, which is really why I call them guidelines, because that's how I treat them as guidelines. If I'm looking at a slab that has fractures like this would be the first thing I would do is I'd mark the fractures where the fractures are, and that way I can just cut right through them. It depends on the angle of the fracture. That's a pretty straight up and down fracture, so I'm not too worried about getting that close to it. If it's at a steep angle, you wouldn't want to be that close to it because it could chip off and damage your piece. But this one will be fine to cut that close to that fracture. But that is a good point. If your fracture is going at a steep angle through the stone, you wouldn't want to cut that close to it. But that is one of the downsides to a piece like this is it does have a good amount of fractures. Yeah, I do drop the slabs all the time when I'm cutting up lots of stones. I'll just take them and drop them on the concrete, let them shatter, and then pick up the pieces and cab those. Especially when I'm doing a lot of stones. So, but that is why I call the fractures guidelines because I'm looking at those saying that's how I'm going to cut the piece. And that'll actually be a really cool cab with the tourmaline in there. This is a piece that I got in Brazil. I actually collected this material. And then I do have another slab here I wanted to show you guys. I have this slab of emerald going through quartz, nice metallic in there. Now this would definitely be a slab that you just would not want to go crazy cutting cabs out of because there are some big boring areas on here. Like you wouldn't want to cut a cab out of that. That would be boring. But if you do a cab with this centered right there, that'd be great to get that single emerald in there. So I would take and do something along the lines of that on that cab so that I get that single emerald centered in there. Now, you do have to be careful looking at the edge of your slab. This one would not work on that because if you notice it tapers in. So I've seen a lot of people cut cabs, they didn't realize how close they were, and that you won't actually be able to get that cab out because of that taper right there. If the emerald goes this way a little bit as you grind into it, it might work. But if we flip it over, you can see it's right on the edge there. So I wouldn't do that triangular shape or that lobe shape, the winkle on the that side. I would flip it over and look at this side, and this would now be the edge of what I use. So if I wanted to do that same shape, I would just put it right up against the edge there and do that. It's not as ideal because the emerald's in the bottom, but I would still put it in the center of the bottom right there, so it's still an attractive piece. And then on a piece like this, if you notice, you get these dark areas of emerald throughout it. and I would sit and pick the best spots of emerald and kind of shapes to help accent that. Now, I do tend to cut a lot of teardrops, but that's just because that is such a popular shape, and I don't intend on setting the majority of the cabs that I cut. I intend to sell them for other people to set. So I try to cut shapes that are going to be popular. Um, one of my favorite shapes is doing a triangle and then grinding the corners off the triangle so you get kind of a six-sided shape. And that's a very fun one to do. People love that. But here's one that I did on the shaping machine. Got the shape out. You can see on this piece, the pattern kind of is even across the whole rock. So I'm looking for bright spots and fractures. I don't see any fractures in this. Yeah, hexagons and octagons, very popular. And so this is a pretty piece right here. You know what's really popular right now is coffins. Doing a coffin shape. This is confetti from Mexico. So and I was looking at some of the I found some little stones that people had marked, and some of them are really well done and some of them are terribly done. I do like this one here because they did this really even with the line going right through the middle of the cab, and it's oriented on this little mountain right here. So it's a perfect little scenic picture, which is rare to find where someone has marked an oval correctly in a collection. In the same collection, however, I found this piece. And if you look at that, this is the marcasite in quartz or chalcedony. It would not be as attractive as a cab because all you would be getting is marcasite. You wouldn't see any of the agate in there. You'd just be getting that. And to me, the prettiest part of the marcasite sprays is these little plume areas, which you're going to grind off when you do this. So to me, this would be a horrible cab to cut. I wouldn't, I mean, this would be one of the last ones I want to cut. This side is a little bit better and you can make it work, but I still would not mark it where they marked. If I was going to cut an oval out of this, let's see, I'll use the smaller one so you can see. I would put that chalcedony right in the middle and make sure I got those plumes in there. Because on this piece right here, you'd want this area to be the center focus of your cab. That is one of the nice things about these stainless steel templates is that it makes it so you can only see what you're going to cab out. The translucent ones are really nice too. So I like both. But yeah, I would. So that's like yikes. I wouldn't cut that. And then this is another one that I found that it's got this great big plume in it, and I think it would be a mistake because you can see that they were cutting this so it was going to be a big oval. I think it would be a mistake to cut this cab too big because it's got too much of this gray area in it for me personally. I would cut it something more like that, and you'd get a much more valuable cab out of this piece where it's more focused on that big red plume. Yeah, exactly. It looks like a tree in there. If you can get trees, flowers, those kind of patterns, that is ideal. So, but you can see if I do that shape versus the big oval that they would have cut, it's a much more attractive cab because we're not seeing as much of this gray blue. We're more focusing and making this the center point here, which really adds to the piece. And then are you guys making sure I'm seeing all the questions?
Yeah, Zeke. We have one here. The aluminum nail, does it work on darker rocks?
Yep, the aluminum will work on darker rock. They'll work on pretty much everything.
Okay. And then from Kate, now, why did you choose to make the grain up and down rather than getting the center angle?
Personal preference. But with making grain go up and down, it'll make a taller shape or make the cab appear taller than doing it side to side.
Right. And another from Kate, do you ever just drop the slab so it breaks on the fractures?
Yes.
Okay. And then from Kirsten, how do you know what shapes are popular? Say, if you are not actively selling, is there a resource you can look at?
Not really. It's all for me personally, it's all been trial and error of what's popular. I've definitely cut shapes that nobody liked. Symmetrical shapes are always going to be popular. You know, like these templates, pretty much all of these shapes are historically very popular shapes. Um, so that's always if you're not sure what to cut, these are always a good line to just find one on here that you like, and you'll learn to get more and more creative as you do it.
All right. And from Daniel, so the natural appearance is the better cabs.
What do you mean, Daniel? You're talking about like where you're getting like the tree shape in there?
Okay, well,
Hi,
we'll wait
William.
for Daniel. Oh, there we go. Yes, and live edge.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can do live edge cabs. Those are cool where you get the like the crystal pocket. This one, however, you can see this beautiful agate, really ugly crystal pocket right here in the center. But when you get these fortifications, this V shape is always going to be fantastic, and you want to find something that orients well to that V shape. Now, this one's kind of wide. Let's see. So something like that would look really cool with this cab to capture that V shape. Now, the one thing I don't like about the way I'm holding this right now is that the green becomes the main center focus. Um, but I prefer the purple in this rock, and the purple is what's going to be more desirable. So even though I really like that shape, I probably wouldn't cut that cab because I prefer the purple to be the more uh predominant color in this. And if you can see, if you cut this, now the green is the center focus, which is still pretty, but it's not as desirable. So that's a really good cab. I still probably wouldn't cut it. I'd prefer something that showed off the purple more. And maybe that just means I pick something a little bit taller. Maybe I go something more this way where I can get a little bit more purple in there. But I would probably prefer something more over on the edges that is going to show the purple off. And you could even do something skinny like this, where you get a lot of the purple in there. And if you're going to maximize the cabs, if you're going to maximize how many cabs you're going to get out of this piece, if I'm going to try to just get the absolute most that I can out of this slab, I'm going to start by going, all right, where are my fractures? I got Well, that's a fill tube there, so that one's okay. I know I saw one, this one right here. I don't like that fracture right there. So I'll mark that, and I know that I'm going to eliminate that. None of this center here, that's all just waste. I'm not going to use any of that. And now I'm going to start picking out cabs. If I was really trying to make the most off of this piece, because there's two ways you can cut this. You can cut for the highest dollar amount, or you can cut for the highest quality piece. Now, I tend to have been in the past, I would have tend to cut for the most amount of cabs I can get out of it that look great, and sell those for the most. Now that I'm not cutting as much production, but more just for fun to show people, I would tend to cut for the best quality cab, even if that means I get a lot less cabs out of the one piece. But on a piece like this, I would cut, if I was trying to get the most out of it, I would cut a smaller shape. Let's see, I'm trying to find something in the templates here. And I would cut a lot of them. So I would cut something like these little teardrops here. I would take those. Let's see how this little one looks here. And cut a bunch of teardrops going along here with the purple at the bottom like that. And I would mark as many of those on there so you're gonna get maybe 3 out of this right there, because you can go right up to the edges and then put one inverted right there where the pink's at the tip, a little one. So you get maybe 3 there. For 2 for sure. Another one there. Another one there. And I do like cutting this one where you get a little bit at the tip there. Another one so you get that pattern there. So out of a piece like this, if I'm cutting these small stones that are, around dime size, I'm still gonna get a handful of cabs out of this one slab, which is how you're gonna absolutely maximize profit. Because there's still beautiful cabs. They're just not the most that this piece could be. I do really like this area down here. Let me grind a little bit of this black off. And really see this piece. All right. So I'm kind of thinking something that captures this entire dip right here, maybe like a bigger teardrop. So I personally would probably cut something like that out of it. Now this template does not fit on there perfectly, so I would just cut this free form, but I would kind of keep the same shape. I would not keep that little where you're starting to get the druzy in there. So you're gonna come a little bit more, make this a little bit more of a sharper, flatter angle. And this is gonna be a little bit more uneven at the bottom. The other thing you could do with this is just mark your own cab where you're doing something a little bit crazier with sharper edges. Kind of like that coral cab I did. Something more along those lines and work with it to get a shape out of there. But I would cut something more like that and do a little bit of kind of funky angles on it. So you kind of get a little bit of design. Like I may actually do a in curve on this angle right here because that completely changes how the cab looks. So, but this, if to get the most out of this piece, I would be focusing on this bottom area. This is a Koyamito. So you can see a fantastic piece right there. But you get a lot of good cabs out of this. I really like this piece. But that's one of the reasons I start by marking the fractures, is so that I know the limitations of what I can cut. I mean, obviously I can't cut anything bigger than what will fit between that point, this fracture, and the edge of the slab down here. And it actually would sit probably more like that and be a more interesting shield shape. But you can see there's a lot of different ways you can cut this to get a completely different look to it. But to me, the V would always be pointing down like that. I wouldn't cut it so that it's up like that. Like I've seen some where people will cut a teardrop or something like that, and to me that just looks backwards. There's nothing wrong with it. Some people will like that. It's not what I prefer. You still could make that and it would still be a beautiful cab. But personal preference. And I really do like the purple is the best color in this piece, which is why that would be the most predominant thing to cut. Let's see. I don't go to shows. I just produce for family and friends. I'd like to sell some through and make some back on my investment. So should I focus on top quality versus quantity? Yes, Patrick. If you should focus on quality. If you're not going to sit down and cut 500 cabs to take to shows, you should focus on cutting the absolute best cabs that you can, and because you're only going to sell it here a few here and there, you don't need to cut 1,000 cabs. When I was running my shop, I would cut somewhere between 100 and 300 cabs a week, and which is a lot of work to do that many cabs. And so if you're not going to sit down and make that many cabs, I would focus on, maybe you're going to make 5 cabs in an evening. I would make every one of those 5 cabs the best cab that you can possibly cut out of the piece.
Um, Rick and also Bruce wants to know if the whole set of templates are for purchase.
The whole set of templates are for purchase. I know we just got some in. I don't know if they've sold out yet or not, or if we shipped all of them out. So, if someone on the team can look that up, that would be great. and we can show those more. But we do sell the templates.
All right. And then Lawrence wants to know, what do you do with the cut-off scraps?
The cutoff scraps, if they are too small to make a cab out of, I just throw them all in the tumbler when I'm done, and or I'd sell them off. Um, I used to have I'd have a 5-gallon bucket of little trim off pieces that were just nothing I would ever use, but someone may use them, and people would buy those, or I would just throw them in the tumbler as filler.
Okay.
And
And
yes, team, please look on the templates to see if they're in stock. Yeah, people that do inlay love those.
then Raylan wants to know, how long have you been doing this? Lapidary.
Lapidary, I started in my dad's store. I was homeschooled. My dad bought a rock shop before I was born, and I was raised in the store. So every day from when I was a little kid to when I want to say about 18, I was in my dad's store. When I was about 6 is when I started learning how to do the cutting and polishing, just getting into it. By the time I'd gotten to when I was about 12 is really when I started doing it a bunch. I started teaching other people how to do it. As the time I was selling equipment for other companies. And so I would give demos and teach people how to use equipment. And it was a lot of fun. I've taught many people how to cut and polish rocks in person. But so I've pretty much my entire life. I started when I was a very little kid, and I've just been learning more and more and more. And that's actually one of the reasons I was so excited to come work at Highland Park, is because I was excited to learn from John, because John knows so much about cutting rocks. It was exciting to get a little work more closely with him and learn a lot about it, because he really is probably the best sphere cutter I've ever met. And he's definitely one of the top sphere cutters in the world. So it's very interesting to get to work closely with him.
Raylan also wants to know, how can someone get into selling cabs?
Get into selling cabs. The first thing I would do is start cutting them, of course, and you're gonna start posting on social media as much as possible. For me, Instagram is where I really took off and started selling stuff. But just start posting about it. Don't post it for sale because you get monetized by the social media. Um, but just start posting on there. If people like what you're doing, people will start asking. And once you start to build that up, more and more people ask. I got to the point where people still ask me if I sell cabochons, which I really do not. I sell cabochons for John, but I don't cut and sell cabs myself anymore. That is a good question. I think it's just at Zeke Dalrymple. But I'd have to look. Honestly, I can't remember what my Instagram is. I'd have to go look.
Okay. Amanda also wants to know, how do you cut pears? Are they worth the pain in the arse? And do you upcharge?
Yes. So when I was cutting cabs a lot, as a general rule, $25 was kind of my minimum fee to cut a cab. If someone brought me a rock, they're like, please cut a cab out of it for me. It would be a minimum of $25 to cut that cab. And then it would go up depending on how hard the shape was. Maybe if it was really big or really small and it was a lot of hard work. If I was doing an earring pair, I pretty much the last sets I did were $150 minimum to do an earring set, because there's so much work to cut those perfect little pairs. If I was gonna cut earring pairs now, I would use the shaping machine so that they would be perfect preforms every time, because it'll cut it way more accurately than I could by freehanding it. So if I was gonna do a lot of earring pairs, I would get the shaping machine and do it that way. But to me, it's not worth the hassle of cutting them all myself unless someone's willing to pay a much higher price for them. And if someone's willing to pay me $150 for an earring set, I'm willing to make it.
And
Oh,
then
thank you, Daniel.
Kirsten wants to know, thoughts on taking all the little scraps and mixing with resin and making a cab that way.
I know people do that. I think it looks really ugly, and I personally wouldn't. But people will buy them. I know a guy that does that with his spheres. He makes spheres, and he takes all the scraps, puts them in resin, and then cuts another sphere out of them, and he sells them. I think they look horrendous, but because it's just so mixed matched. There's no thought into how they're, no contrasting colors, no matching patterns. It's just this big mix of junk in a piece. So I don't think it's that attractive, but some people like that. And yes, Jimmy, if you're gonna cut an earring pair, I do think that it's good to butterfly your piece. Instead of just cutting up more and more and more, to actually butterfly your piece. So you could cut two slabs and then stick those slabs side by side, and you do it that way, or you could take one thicker piece and cut it in half so that you have two thin pieces and do it that way. So cutting a thick slab and butterflying it is a good way to do it. Oh, that's awesome, Ed. I'm glad to hear that. I think somebody put the link in the chat up there earlier too on the stainless steel templates. Awesome. Well, we can go back to the other camera here and look at some more rocks. It's just nice to be able to see your guys' questions. Let's see. Let's look at this piece of coral. This is that piece of coral. This is actually the piece that I cut that one cab out of that we showed. But before I get it wet, if you'll notice, there's these kind of soft spots in here. I would not want to put that in my cab. I would cut through that. So I would just plan on cutting through that area there where they're a little bit softer. You can also see when I get it wet, it's a little bit less attractive in this line where it's a little bit softer there anyway. So this piece, I'm looking at this pattern and I really like this area up here. This area here is fantastic. You do have this fracture right here, but the rest of this area over here is good pattern. But of course, I want to cut for the best. So I'm going to be looking at these areas that have the pink and yellow together. So, I'll be looking at right up to the edge of where that area is. A little hard to line up on camera. Like I like that shape right there. But you want to look at it. Like if you look in the center of there, is your eye drawn to the center of the cab? Personally, I don't love the placement of this cab because the center is not the brightest, prettiest area of this piece. So it's not something that I would immediately go to cut this because it doesn't pop. So I would keep looking at this and see, all right, where else can I cut on here to make that area the center where I want to show. Actually, let's see, where do those triangular ones go? And I was just knocking them all on the floor here. I really like this area down here. So that is a cab that I would cut. Where I got that bright gold is accenting the pink. And now the main focus right there is that great pink banding. Oh yes, I would definitely play with the templates, look around, see what you like. Because now is your time to look at and say, all right, do you like that piece? I don't know, what do you guys think? That last cab that I held up with the long, skinny, um, I'm not even sure what to call that shape. Or do you like this shape better? Because I think this one is a much better cab right there. And it's the same area of the rock. So you got to look at it and see, all right, is that what you want to cut or do you want to cut the other piece? Obviously, this one's going to be a much better cab and you're actually using less material and you'll get more for this one. Yeah, that's a fantastic pattern right there. And yes, the yellow does frame. And that's what I was trying to get to a little bit in the beginning there is you're basically taking and framing a little picture inside each rock. So you got to look at the piece and say, all right, what do I want people to look at when they look at this rock? If you just look at this rock as a whole, your eye is not drawn to the best part of it, which is on the edge over here. It's drawn to this big line, which is actually my least favorite part of this piece. So you got to frame this out for people to see. It also helps if you flip these around a little bit. So going back to kind of a longer shape there, I also really like that cab because again, it captures the best part of the rock. And you get this bright gold. The pattern is nicely met in the center. Like you can see where that flower pattern kind of meets in the middle, and you get the pink on there. So if the rock is an even one color, how do you decide? This is a pretty good example. This one's got a little variation to it, but this is a really nice piece of jade. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, well, there's a fracture there. There's a couple little fractures over here, and there's this fracture here. So I know that I'm going to cut through those areas, and I'm not going to put them in the center of a piece. The first thing that jumps out of my eye is I like this dark to light right here, where it's this light area and dark area right here. So my immediate thought would be to put that together. Let's see what shape will look good with that. Kind of like that. So you got that almost that line going right through the middle of your piece. And see, again, I like the line going this way because it makes the cab look taller and skinnier. If you cut it this way, it gives it a different appearance. And to me, the line going this way is much more attractive. But then we get into, this area over here. And it's all right. Well, there's not a lot of variation there. So at that point, I'm just going to see how I can get the most out of this piece, what shapes and how I can cut it to get the most out of it. How would you free frame it? If you're looking at a piece and you don't have a template and you're like, all right, how do I make cabs that I'm going to like out of this? I'm going to start by cutting through the fractures. Let's see. I just had my. Oh, fell on the floor. So I would start by cutting right through that down through there, which then is going to leave me this nice area here. I would cut through that fracture right there, and this piece would actually probably get thrown in a tumbler. I probably wouldn't even cab that area. I would cut through that line right there and make a teardrop or a shield out of this shape because this fracture orients itself well to making that kind of a shape there. Obviously you wouldn't want to cut a square out of this area because you're going to have to cut a lot off of it. And then from there, you can decide which patterns and areas you like. Really breaking it down more and more and more makes it easier and easier to decide how you're going to cut the piece. If you look at this whole piece, it seems like, oh my gosh, how would you ever decide to cut that? But each step you break it down makes your next decision easier and easier and easier. Then here's another piece that's kind of a uniform color. That is, how do you decide to cut it? This is a piece of cobalt and calcite. And I just had a flashlight here. I'm losing stuff like crazy. Well, this is a piece of cobalt and calcite. This is a very beautiful pink color, which you cannot see because of the nice rough cut on it. This over here is just matrix. So the first thing I would do is I would cut up there and across there and get rid of 90% of that matrix. And I wouldn't even use that in the cab. It's meh. If you're going to cut a high-end cab, it's average. It's not something that you want to be the focus point of your piece. If you really wanted to, you could cut a cab where you got a little bit of matrix, this pink line, but your focus is still this. But that's not going to be a top piece. It's going to be a above average piece, maybe. So I would cut that whole section off right there. And I wouldn't even use that area. And then from there, I'm just going to decide how I want to cut this piece. I would probably cut it through there as well and do a shape out of this and another shape out of this. So from there, you're just deciding which shapes you want. Maybe here I would do a rectangle, and this area I would do more like this so that I could do kind of a free form teardrop. Or you could mark it out and actually cut a teardrop, but very rarely do I actually mark them and cut a precise stone. This is kind of a triangular teardrop that I cut out of that jade, and I'm a big fan of a shape like that. These kind of more free form, natural looking shapes. All right, let me come back over the comments because I can't read them.
There's just one.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. I haven't tried using a 6-inch blade yet. It's one of the things that I've been meaning to try is putting a 6-inch blade on the 10-inch trim saw. That's fascinating. Yes, Ed, definitely forgetful and the old age. That's the problem. We'll go with that.
Chris wants to know, how do you feel about cutting circles?
I only cut a circle if the piece really is great for it says, oh man, you just got to cut a circle out of that, or somebody asks for it. I mean, they're okay. A perfect circle is actually kind of a hard shape to cut. A lot of people look a little squampus when they cut them, so it's definitely something you should master and get good at. But a circle is definitely not one of my preferred shapes. And I would say that circles are not extremely popular. I mean, they're popular, but if you have two identical cabs and one's an oval and or let's say three cabs, one's an oval, one's a circle, and one's a teardrop, I'd pretty much guarantee that you're going to sell the teardrop, the oval, and then the circle in that order. I would say the ovals are more popular than circles. But it really depends on the person. It's all about how you cut it and who's buying it. And that's exactly right, Lawrence. If I'm gonna cut circles, I prefer to use a core bit. Oh, you're very welcome. A bigger, busy piece. Let's see. I got the perfect slab for that. I got this Guadalupe poppy jasper that is tons of little orbs and eyes on here. Great color. Fantastic pattern everywhere. You can see that this is just a great looking piece all around. I'm going to start with by looking for fractures. I really don't see any in this piece. There's one right here on the edge. So I would take that, cut right through there. Let's see. Oh, and you can fill one down here. So we'll cut that off. All right, so we know we're going to cut like that on those two pieces to get rid of those two fractures. Fill in for any others. All right, I don't fill any more in there. Now I'm going to look at and say, I love this area right here. Your eye is naturally drawn to these areas up here. So I would take and I would cut right through this line because I think that line is kind of boring compared to the rest of the rock. So I would separate it out. I would just cut through that area and treat this as a separate slab now. And now I know that I want to make taller shapes and capture a bunch of these eyes. The first one I would do is kind of this area. I'd want to get these eyes right here and these eyes right here in one cab if possible, and maybe a smaller one up here. Or you could do one big cab that frames this area here. My next area here would be this area. I like this set of eyes here, so I would frame those. And then on this one, I would make a smaller cab that frames this area right here because that's a nice set of eyes. And then you'd be left with this slab here, which is okay. It's not top area on this piece. It would be a cab that I would cut last if I was going to do this whole slab. This would be the last one I'd be concerned with. This one, and this one would be the first three that I'd care about. Now, if we come down here, we can look and see where we like the separation. I kind of like the separation of this area right here. So again, I'm going to be looking at some taller cabs in these areas because I like that where it goes from this kind of dark to the bright. You got this green line going through the middle. So I would cut those three cabs out and do that general size where you're doing these taller shapes. Now, I'm not picking shapes. I'm just kind of cutting out, I'm just kind of chopping it up how I would cut it up. So that's why I'm drawing these straight lines. I wouldn't cut rectangles out of all these. I'm just dividing it up how I would cut it. But you can see those would be really nice areas. And then we're going to be cut through there, so we might as well just finish that cut right there. And that leaves you kind of this area. I would cut diagonally across that one and do two triangles out of this area. And again, these would be my least favorite of this set. Still pretty cabs and worth cutting. They just would not be the ones I'd want to cut first. And then we're left with all of this bright area right down right here, which is kind of this even uniform pattern. The best area is where you get this green and yellow combination together. So I would probably cut this end off and do a cab, like a tall teardrop or something like that out of this piece. Because again, it's still going to be a cab worth cutting. It's just not going to be your top pieces on here. So we know this area's cut off, this area's cut off, and now we're cut all the way through here. So we're left with this middle section. For me, I like the brecciation lines where you get this translucent agate running through here. So I'm going to cut something in this area that captures the eyes and puts that brecciation close to the middle there. That's going to leave you a cab up there, a really killer cab right there. Another one in this area that's going to be pretty good. This cab right here will be really good because you got these little squiggly lines going through it and all of these dots. I like this row of dots right here. So I would cut something out of that where it's got this nice line going through there. And then that's going to leave me with this kind of shape over here that's going to limit on what I can cut and kind of a shape right here that's going to limit what I can cut. So I may cut it up like that over here and get this green and yellow together on there. And then that'll leave you a shape right there. So let's see, on this piece, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's see, that was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 cabs out of this slab is how I would divide that up. I mean, that's just personal preference. You could obviously cut bigger cabs, you could cut smaller cabs, but that's personally how I would divide this up to get what I wanted out of it.
How thick are you cutting your slabs?
Most are going to be 1/4 inch or a little bit thinner, kind of in that general size. This jade is really thin. That's the thinnest I would go, and this jade is nice and durable material, so it's easy to work with. And then I like this thickness here. Again, that's a little bit thicker than or thinner than 1/4 inch. That's about a 1/4 inch right there. That's a good thickness, but I wouldn't do thicker than that unless you're doing high dome cabs. Like this piece of aquamarine right here, I would cut this piece this exact shape, and I would leave it that thickness so you capture that really good blue in there.
And then Kim wants to know, from what I am understanding, you capture your designs first.
Yes, the design. Also, if I'm doing it in order, I'm gonna start with fractures. Fractures are gonna be the first thing that determines what I can cut out of the piece. Obviously, if you have the best design and pattern in there with a big fracture running right through the middle of it, it's gonna devalue your piece. So fractures are gonna be the first thing that decides where I cut, and then pattern. And once the pattern, I can see the pattern of what I'm left with, that's when I'm going to pick the best pattern out. And whatever I'm left with after I pick the best pattern is going to be kind of my B grade cabs out of the piece.
Okay. And then Edward wants to know, not one huge oval belt buckle.
You could cut one big oval cab out of it. It's not what I would do, but you could do that.
And then Daniel wants to know, Zeke, how many cabs and shape will you pre-cut before you start the doming process?
So for me, when I was cutting production, I would cut anywhere from 50 to 200 preforms. And I would just cut them all out, throw them in a bin. And because my goal is to cut a lot of cabs, not just one here and there. So I would get a bunch ready where I cut them out, picking out the design I want and the pattern, marking them, or just picturing how I want the piece. I'm going to throw those all in a bin. Once I have anywhere between 50 and 200, I'm going to take them over and I'm going to start grinding out the shape. So I'm doing the edge of the cab, working on the bevel. Um, and once I have, I sometimes I'll do the bevel and the dome at the same time. Sometimes I'll do all the bevels on all of them and then go back and do all the domes. But I'm doing all of them in that process and then I'm moving them all through the process. And then I'll go to the 220 grit and move every preform I did through the 220 grit. And so on and so on. So I'll move each piece through every part of the process. So I may cut cabs, I may cut the preforms on Monday and start 200 cabs, but it may be the next Monday before I'm actually finished with all of them because they're all going to get finished at the same time.
Okay. And then Rick wants to know, what is your favorite layout when cabbing Tiger Eye?
Tiger Eye, always that piece we showed in the beginning. I'm gonna generally go for shapes that are gonna tall with the pattern. I did like when we did a shape like that with the banding right in the center where that line goes, like that. But I do prefer laying them out so that they're taller like this. This one, the best blue in it is right here, which is why this one got put right there.
Okay, Kelly wants to know again, how thick do you cut your slabs, please? Is it quarter inch or thinner?
Generally it depends on the material, but like most agates, I'm gonna cut slightly thinner than quarter inch. So on a one of the slab saws, the bigger like 16 and up, 16 to 24 inch, I'm generally doing between 6 and 8 turns to get the desired thickness. So on a 16, most of the time I'm going to be like 7 turns, is about perfect. But it depends on the thread count and the size of the blade you're using. The thickness of the blade is going to change how many turns you do. If you put a thin line blade on there, it's going to be a different amount than if you have a precision blade on there. For like a high tone, it's a finer thread on there, or the 12-inch precision slab saw. It's a finer thread. So I think you're like 9 turns on that one is the desired thickness. And yes, it's just a piece of aluminum that's sharpened on the end so I can draw on it. I don't know what size saw do you have, Sarah? A thin line blade on what saw? A 16? So that's probably going to be 8 turns if I'm thinking correctly. Maybe it's 7. I have a precision blade on there and I'm doing 6, 7 is kind of average. Yeah, 7 to 8 is a good amount. Carl, we sell tapered wheels for the shaping machine that do a 3 or 6 degree bevel. I'm pretty sure I put one on your list of things to get. To like a 6 degree bevel on there. Yeah, but it's affected by what blade you use, Carl. So 8 turns if you're using a certain blade. You gotta calculate that out. John can tell you the calculations. I don't know exactly what they are off the top of my head. On some of the malachite I cut had what I guess you would call vugs in the middle. How do you work with that, or do you just avoid it? It depends on if the vug is attractive or not. If the vug is like on that piece that Koyamida we were looking at where the vug is just absolutely ugly calcite, I would not use it. If you got a piece of like chatoyant malachite with this nice little botryoidal vug in there, the vug I would put right in the center of the cab to capture that vug in it. So it depends on if the vug is pretty or not. If the vug is pretty, then put it right in the center of the cab.
Trish is asking a soldering stick.
You're welcome, Patrick. I wouldn't use solder. It's aluminum. Someone put in the chat earlier that you could buy aluminum stencils. Vug, Raylan. VUG.
Shane also wants to know what about an agate with a basic pattern visible to the eye in most light, but is turtle backed.
If it's turtle backed, I would look at it with the light behind it, and I would find the best turtle back because you're gonna sell that piece when you show people the light behind it. So I would cut for the best turtle back pattern, so that way when you put the light behind it, people are just blown away with how cool it looks. So I would focus on what it looks like with the light behind it if you're gonna cut something like that.
Thank you. And Boyd wants to know, with the rock aligned with the left of the saw blade, how many turns for a 1/4 inch?
For what saw?
Uh, with the rock aligned with the left of the saw blade. Not sure
Oh
what
gosh. Depends on what saw you have, what the 14 inch.
inch.
Are you talking about a high tone 14? I think that's a fine thread. So generally you're gonna be 8 to 9 turns on that. And yes, we can do the more doming. We can even do a little doming tonight because I got the new CB 6 here. Speaking of which, let's put the deal in the chat that we talked about earlier and spin the wheel.
All right. Lawrence is in the room.
Lawrence, door 1, 2, or 3? Door number 3. All right. That's lot 6437. Got a piece of Cherry Creek for you. Ooh. Nice piece of Cherry Creek. Congratulations. That's lot 6437. All right. The deal for tonight. So we're going to do, where did it go? All right. You got to put the deal back in there because I can't see it now. Let's see. All right. 1.5 pounds of the Idaho Sunset. Normally that'd be 127.50. We're gonna do it tonight for $100, which is a nice deal on that. If you buy the CB6, the new 6-inch stainless steel cabbing unit, which you forgot to put the price in there, so nobody knows how much it is, you get the Idaho Sunset deal included with that. So you're basically getting that $127 worth of rock for free. And for those of you that don't know what it looks like, I do have a couple little pieces of rough sitting here to show you guys. So there's a piece of the Idaho sunset. Oh, that's a really pretty piece. Great pattern. This is a seam agate that comes from Idaho, if you couldn't tell by the name. It's a beautiful material. Oh, that's a really cool one. These ones kind of have a little bit more of that cream color in them, a little bit of the pink. Man, the sass, Kate, and you're so quick with it. I really like this piece. That's fantastic with that creamy bands in there. That's beautiful. So awesome deal for you in there. That's funny. And then, oh, there we go. They put the CB6 price in there. So the CB6 is 1,347. We do have them in stock now. And I know a bunch of people are waiting for them. We're shipping them out. So they will get shipped. That is happening. I'm curious, who wants to see the new CB6? It's an awesome machine. I've been having a lot of fun oohing and awing at it. All right. Well, good, because I want to talk about it. So let me just give you the broad view. We do have the gravity feed set up here. Yeah, it's clean because I haven't used it yet. I've just been oohing and awing at it. It's got this single light long enough to reach both ends here. Now, it will come with an end plate with the felt on it on each end. This one I've already put cerium oxide on, but each end will have the felt wheel on it. I added, because I was too impatient, a diamond plate on here already. So this is something that you won't get this with the machine. It's something that we sell and you can order. It's really easy. You just take that screw out, swap them out, put them on there. Really easy to switch out. But it will come with a felt one on each end. New upgrade, it's got this felt wheel or this felt pad that goes across the entire front here. So to change this out, all you got to do is take out these 3 screws. So much easier than previously. And then I know you guys are just dying to hear about the valves, because who wouldn't get excited about valves, right? This does have a valve for each end plate on the ends here. And then these are bigger. They're a bigger design and they have a better seal inside them. So you should not have a leak issue with these like the CB8 had in the past. These are upgraded manifold design, much better design that John has upgraded to. It does have the 2 drains in the back like the CB8 does. Right now these have plugs in them so that the water just builds up in the bottom here. So you can run this as a very self-contained unit and just drain it out, or you can plumb it so it's draining out the back here. It does not come with extra spacers, but you could change the spacers out, and if you took the end plate off here, you get really big spacing on this. This spacing on here is perfect the way it is right now. So that's a really good setup that way. And of course, cannot make a CAD machine without a rolled armrest. If you look at any other CAD machine, they're either going to have a flat bar here, which is very uncomfortable, or you're going to have just a sharp edge, which is ridiculous. If you think about leaning on that for a minimum of a half an hour, it sucks. So when John built the CB8s, I bought one before I even looked at the rest of them, because this is so comfortable to work on. I've never needed to. The wheels are included on this machine. This machine comes with the wheels. So currently, the only modification I have made to the machine so far is I changed out the diamond plate instead of putting having the felt pad on there. And one more awesome upgrade to tell you guys about. John made these stainless steel covers for each end, and they're held on with 2 brass screws. which is really cool. These are much nicer, I think, than the silicon ones. So you just slide those in place there, and then you put your brass screws up in the top. So really, really cool machine. They're really easy to take off. You got your power switch in the front. You don't have to run this with the gravity fed. You can plumb this straight in. It's just that 6 mm quick disconnect. Oh, you'll love the CB8, Sarah, if you're thinking about switching over. I have never been a fan of the Cab Kings. That's a really hard question to answer, Randy, because it is entirely based on how you use them. For me, I could probably get a couple hundred cabs out of there before I was ready to replace them. When I was a brand new little kid and I was learning how to make cabs, I ruined 2 sets in the first 2 weeks I did cabs. So, it is entirely dependent. They can last anywhere from a couple hours to a year, I'd say is kind of an average um difference there. Uh Ruin the wheels. Well, if you take your resin wheel here and you put something really sharp and hard and cut a groove into it, that's a good way to ruin it. Or if you just put a lot of pressure right in the center and you don't move back and forth and you wear out the center of the wheel, this is a 6-inch machine. So these are 6-inch wheels. And you don't use the edges at all. You wear them out really fast. So this small footprint on this, great little machine. If we want to compare it to the CB8, I don't have the lights on this machine right now. This is a bigger version. This is the 8-inch version. This one has 2 lights on it. I'm not sure if these come with it now. I have to ask. It does not come with a lot of the little accessories. It does not come with wheels. This is a more basic, you kind of build it the way you want it. Thank you, Daniel. I wasn't sure if that got changed or not, so I had to remember. It will have the ability to add the same end plates that are on the CB6, but the 8-inch version, we don't currently have those yet. This machine is 1,600 and I think 45. If I'm remembering correctly, that's a guess, so you'll have to look it up to someone put it in the chat to see. But that is without the wheels, without the lights, without the splash guards. So even though this is the machine I would primarily use, if you wanted a really good deal on a machine, I would get the CB6 because it's great. It comes with everything you need to get started. Fantastic little machine, very compact. Originally when John built the CB8, he did not sell the lights, or did not sell the wheels. So he made it just bare minimum so that people could buy just what they wanted and not have to buy everything else. We've kind of since discovered that most people prefer it to come with every little accessory, bell and whistle. So eventually we'll probably raise the price on this machine and just include everything. But right now it's just a really good deal on it. For doing cabs, the best reason to get a CB8 is an 8-inch wheel, just simply for the fact that it's got a wider radius than a 6-inch wheel, will cut faster. If you think about a wheel, if the center of the shaft is going the same speed, the further out you go from the center, the faster it's going to move. So an 8-inch will actually cut rock faster than a 6-inch wheel. Not that the wheels are spinning faster, but just because of the larger diameter, it will cut faster. This machine does come with the spacer kits. So you can adjust where the placing of the wheels. Eventually the CB8 will be getting some of the upgrades that the CB6 has. But it's still a fantastic machine and I still really love it. Yes, Daniel, it is. So, all right, let me read some of these questions. Or why don't you read them to me, John, or someone
Sure.
on the team?
Yeah, we might have missed this one. Are those going to be available for the CB8, the end plates?
They will be available. We do not currently have them in stock yet, but John is making them.
Okay, and then what diamond plate did you add to the end of the CB6?
I just put a 260 grit diamond plate on there. We sell a bunch of the diamond plates. That's just one I had sitting here. Excuse me. There was no rhyme or reason why I chose 260 grit.
Okay, and then Zeke, when you said the spacing was set up with good placement or separation on the CB6 you showed, what spacers and sequence of spacer size would you recommend on a CB8?
On the CB8, so the way the CB8 comes, the felt wipers are already put in place because that's a little bit different design. It's the older design. I would just match your wheels to where the felt wipers are. And that should get you because it's going to come with a big set of spacers. Just match where the felt is, and that should be a good placement to get you started.
And then Raylene wants to know, are the 8-inch wheels available, though Highland? Are the wheels from Nova or elsewhere compatible with this?
We sell the wheels both 8 and 6 inch. It's a 1 inch arbor. It's actually on the I'm not sure what it is on the CB6, but on the CB8, it's actually a 34 millimeter arbor that's been ground down for the wheels so that you can put the 1 inch wheels on there. On the CB6, it's going to be 1 inch shaft where you put the wheels, but I'm not sure if John did a bigger shaft in the middle.
And then Melissa wants to know, her husband just bought her the CB6 today. Can she still get the deal?
You purchased it today?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll still do that.
All right, thank you. And then Daniel is asking, do you have a preference between canvas and felt for polishing?
Canvas I would use for diamond powder. I'd put diamond powder on there. For felt, I would use cerium oxide. Is really tried all kinds of things, but 9 out of 10 times cerium oxide is going to do a fantastic job. Um, so cerium oxide is probably what I would use on the felt wheel.
Okay, and some questions we missed before. Scott wants to know, speaking of plexiglass covers, I have a lower tone LS10 that the cover shattered. How can I replace it?
The LS10 and the HT10 are the same size. So if you just get on the website and search HT10, you'll see the hood on there. If you don't see it on there, just call us up or send us a message. Someone on the staff can help you with that part.
All right. And then Michael Simpson wants to know, what is the arbor size on the 10-inch trim saw?
It's a 5/8 inch arbor. At least where the blade goes. I know John likes to oversize the arbor on the actual shaft, and where you put the wheel or the blade, he grinds it down. So I'm not sure what the actual rod is that he used, but the where you put the blade on is 5/8 inch.
And then Raylene is interested to know, where do you get your rocks? Do you ever rock hound?
Yeah, I've been rock hounding in the US, all over the US and Brazil. Um most of if you're gonna sell rocks, I would advise against going out and collecting and selling. For one, it takes up a lot of time to go dig and sell, but there's a lot of laws and restrictions against selling off of public land. You can't just go out on public land, collect a rock, and then sell it. That's a good way to wind up in trouble with the Bureau of Land Management. So I would advise you to buy beautiful quality rocks and cut them, or to learn how to mine and go out and get your claims and focus on the digging. Would be my personal suggestion, but you can do both. I used to have a lot of friends that would own claims, so I would go dig on their claim and then cut and polish what I collected.
Okay. And then Scott wants to know, can I cut labradorite and obsidian on my 14-inch high tone with the green line blade? And is it okay to use cutting oil with those stones?
Yes and yes. If you have a brand new HT14 and you've got a brand new green line blade on there, I would cut some other agates before you cut the obsidian. Because it's a little bit more aggressive when you get it, so I'd let it wear in a little bit. But once the blade's broken in on the green line blades, you'd be just fine to cut obsidian.
And then Sarah wants to know what is the arbor size on the CB6 and CB8?
Both 1-inch shaft where you're gonna put the wheels. So any standard set of wheels is gonna fit on there.
Okay. And Donna wants to know, is there a leather end pad or is the felt pad suitable for polishing for the CB6?
We currently do not have a leather pad on there. It would be really easy. So on this plate right here, if you look right over here, the felt is just glued to this aluminum backer. So you could, if you like, because you're going to get 2 of these when you buy this machine, you could peel the felt off of one and put glue leather on it, and use the leather on one and use the felt on the other. We're also going to sell these. So personally, I would buy a couple of these when we get those on stock in stock on the website, and so that you can glue up your leather one, your felt one, your canvas one, whatever you're going to use.
Okay. And then Jimmy wants to know, isn't there more space between the wheels on the 8-inch?
You will get more space on the 8-inch because it's a bigger machine. And Ed brings up a really, really good point. If you want to know a good place to buy high quality rocks and see exactly what you're getting, you should join us on our rough rock nights. We do them Wednesday and Friday. We do slabs and kind of some rough rock on Saturday as well. But we show lots of beautiful rocks, talk about them, and you get to see exactly what you're going to get.
Right. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Zeke. And then Paul wants to know, just tuned in, was wondering how much does the CB6 weigh? I have one on the way.
I'm not sure on the weight yet. I have not weighed this machine. The only thing that we could look up and tell you right now is the shipping weight. It's pretty light for a cabbing machine. I picked this one up and moved it around with no problem by myself.
Okay. And then Rhonda wants to know, is there a vise or fence on the 6-inch trim saw?
There is not. John does not make one for the 6-inch trim saw. Um, If you want a vise, get the 10-inch. The PT does have a small fence on it. But the 10-inch is going to be really good with that little vise on there to help you hold the rocks if you want a trim saw that has a vise on it.
All right. I think we're all good with the questions.
Awesome. Any other questions? Anything else you guys want me to show while we're sitting here looking at this beautiful machine? Awesome. Yeah, the 10-inch trim saw is really cool. Yep, the live selling events are on the same at the same time. It would be 4 p.m. Pacific time. All right. Well, I think there's requests to make a cab now. So I guess the hardest part now is to decide what we're gonna cut. Well, I got a couple pieces of coral here that are already cut out. So those would be good ones to do. Let's find a couple here. This Kambaba Jasper would be a fun one to cut. I like the shape on it. I'll let you guys decide what we cut. Really cool confetti agate. Nice piece of aquamarine. John, tell me what's the most popular one.
It's Kumbaba.
Kambaba. All right. Well, we can do the Kambaba. All right. Now I do have this set up to be gravity fed right now. So we'll see how long our little bucket of water lasts. And I am curious, can you guys hear me better tonight? I do have a new headset, so while the machine's running, I'm hoping it sounds better. Awesome. Glad to hear. All right, let me get the camera set up so that I can actually see the wheel and cut at the same time. I like this shape That's an interesting shape. This is actually a sphere preform that John cut. You can see this is where the core bit ground on the outer side here, which is why it's curved on the top. I am going to clean up our shape on the bottom here. The 6-inch cab machine is in stock. Oh, a nice new aggressive wheels. They feel fantastic. A little bit of a curve on the top here, so we'll just keep that curve. I know new wheels are just so nice.
Sharon wants to know what are the wheels that come with CB6?
The wheels that come on there are going to be 80, 220 hard wheels, 280 resin, 600 resin, 1200 resin, and 3000.
Okay, thank you. And then Patrick wants to know what is the precision blade? I don't see that on your website.
That's going to be the black blade or the segmented blade on there.
Are the CB6 hard wheels plated?
Yep, they're plated.
Okay.
Although we do sell centered wheels, so you could change those out after you wear them out. This is the CB6. No, they're not big curve. I mean, they're bigger than the thin line blades, but I wouldn't say they're huge. That's what I use the most, actually, is the precision blades.
What is the diamond powder size to use with milk?
50,000 grit. Man, those nice new wheels just feel fantastic. What are the deals tonight, John?
Nermin will post it. There we go.
So we got the Idaho Sunset. Normally it would be 127.50 for a pound and a half. Tonight you can get that for $100. Or if you order the CB6, we'll include the pound and a half of the Idaho Sunset. So you're getting all that $127 for free. And then we can't not show the end plate here.
Shane wants to know, do you have to break in the wheels like you do the belts?
No. They're just more aggressive in the beginning.
And Mary just wants to confirm, did you just say to use 50,000 grit with milk?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, get my laptop soaked.
Sarah wants to know, do you have to do anything with the milk to keep it from spoiling and smelling bad if left it in the pad?
The pad will be fine. Eventually it'll get, to where you don't want to use it anymore. But you just mix small amounts of diamond and just rinse it off when you're done, you'll be fine.
Okay. Why milk?
Because it is a really good carrier for the diamond. It suspends the diamond perfectly and makes for a really good polishing compound, and you're not putting all of the oil all over your piece.
All right. And then Liz wants to know, what is the end cap wheel you just used?
That is a 260 grit, which does not come on the machine. That's one that I changed out. What'll come on there is a felt wheel.
Okay.
I do really like the spacing of these wheels and the size. This is a great little machine. Kind of an interesting little shape to do off of the. That is a good question. I would have to ask Sherman. Sherman said, "Put this on and make it work." This piece had a little bit of a dome on it already because it was cut as a core piece. But I did the dome on the first wheel, or at least changed the shape of it to how I wanted it.
So Carl Milner asks, Zeke, since I already bought almost every machine, can I have the free rocks anyway?
Yeah, about a CB6.
Okay, Carl, you should buy the CB6. And Donna is asking, are you doing most of the doming work on the second wheel?
I did it really quick because this one already had a curve on it. I did it really quick on the first wheel and then finished it up on the second wheel. But this is a softer stone, so I am doing a lot of the grinding on the second wheel there.
Mhm. And Liz wants to know, how do you know when you go to the next wheel?
Because I can feel the stone and I know when to do it. If you don't know when to move on, you should stop, look at your piece, dry it off. Look for scratches, flat spots, any areas that need improvement before you move on. I got so excited I forgot to slow down on this piece.
Okay. And Gregory wants to know, do you dry between wheel at all?
If you're gonna look at the piece, you need to dry it so you know what to look at. Let me wipe this one off.
Okay.
And using it, I know this is gonna be a question, but using the gravity fed without the bucket full actually works really well. I'm surprised how good the water pressure is. All right, so you can see it dried off here. No major scratches, no flat spots. I like the shape. No, not on the diamond wheels. You don't need to worry about contamination between diamond wheels. Then I'll polish the back of that. It's fairly flat, girl. This one actually tapers back a little bit. Yep. So on the back here, I did the back on that 260 grit, so I didn't need to do it on the 220. Polish the back there. And since this is a softer stone, I can clean up the girdle here, make it a little bit more even. Not a ton of pressure. I'm not pushing very hard. And then we can fix that girdle because this is a soft stone without going back. Put a little bit more of a taper on it.
Um,
I'm not sure what you said, Jack. Now I'm gonna have to go back and read it. It should be tapered like this, about 6 degrees is ideal. Although flat is just fine. It's also dependent on who's setting it and what they're using it for. People that do wire wrapping versus doing cabin or silversmithing are going to prefer different things. It's just sitting on the little rubber feet. It's not mounted in anything. It's actually sitting on a little cart that I use to move stuff around.
Do you use water aid? I heard jet dry will work in its place.
Nope, you don't need any kind of water aid. If you're gonna put anything in your water, I would use a little bit of Dawn dish soap, but that's it. I wouldn't use any of those additives. Because the Dawn dish soap, all it's doing is changing the lubricity. And that's all you need. But for most things, it's going to be just fine without it. I don't ever really use an aid. All right, let's wipe this off and see how we're doing. Yep, looking good on the face there. And then let me wipe back off. You got to blow it off too. Make sure you get it completely dry so you can see all the scratches and the flat spots. What I prefer is the blue paper towels that you get like an automotive store. But right now I'm just using regular paper towels. And then do you prefer on my setup when I had my shop, I would actually leave an air compressor hose next to my cabbing machine and my sphere machine so that I could use compressed air to blow it off. I don't currently have anything set up to do that. For me, the dome, I like it nice and thin on the edge there, nice thin girdle. Because if you're doing silversmithing, you want it to be really thin. But I also leave it flat enough that wire wrappers can still use this piece. I don't like it when the dome tapers all the way down to the edge. That's what John calls old fogey style. So for me, this thin, fairly flat with a slight up angle is perfect. And yeah, I prefer a shallow dome if I'm doing something like this because it helps make the whole face really show. If you did a high dome on this, then you're going to focus right in the center. Lots of practice. I'll do another piece after I finish this one, and I'll show you how I do the dome a little bit slower because I did go really fast on this one.
Alan wants to know, when I took a class on cabbing several years ago, I was taught that to dome, I would cut down to half the width of the slab. Zeke,
That's the one we just answered.
oh, okay. And then,
Thank you.
all right. And then Paul wants to know, can the wheels be refurbished or recapped, or do you toss them when they are used up?
There are people that refurbish the wheels. We do not refurbish the wheels. I just toss them when we're done. Or actually, a lot of the time, what I'll do is I'll give them away or sell them to people that will use what's left. Because as a general rule, I'm not wearing the wheels completely out before I'm changing them. for me, when they start cutting slower than they did when they were new, is generally when I'm starting to change them out because I want to cut as fast as I can.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Kate wants to know, your dome is so shallow, definitely a challenge for me. Is there a trick?
Yeah, after I'm done with this piece, I'll do another dome so that we can talk about how to do that dome because I did this one really fast because I was excited and wasn't thinking about teaching. I was thinking about, ooh, brand new toy to play with.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
See, I should have made a cab before the cut and chat so I could have gotten the excitement out. Because right now I'm like, ooh, this is so exciting to play with this new machine. Honestly, having a new exciting machine to me is just as exciting as cutting a really incredible cab, if not more so. All right, I will wipe this off so you guys can see it, but it feels like it is ready to go. You can see it's already semi-polished. We'll just finish it up here. I don't see any major scratches or flat spots that we need to worry about. I really like these new valves. These new valves are definitely a big improvement. And I like the height John did. It's like the perfect height to just put straight onto your wheel. Really good angle to work. Rolled armrest is nice and comfortable. Yeah, I rarely use a dop stick. If I'm doing cabs, especially this size, I prefer to just hold them. But it can definitely help people not hit their fingers on the wheels. For some people, it really helps give them a better shape if they have a handle. But the majority of the cabs I've cut have been free-handed like this. All right, let's see how that looks. Yeah, you can. My fingernails are looking pretty terrible too.
Do you ever feel the need to mask up, especially with the softer stones?
It is a really good idea to wear a mask even when you're doing it wet, because even the water particles, you're inhaling that water. So it's a good idea to wear a mask. I don't wear a mask. If I'm in my shop and I'm cutting a lot of cabs, I'll wear a mask the whole time. I'll have my headphones on, masks, rubber gloves. When I'm doing the cut and chat, I'm cutting very little and I'm doing so much talking that I just don't wear a mask. And then, all right, let's use the felt on the end here. As a general rule, I don't wear eye protection, but that's just because I tend to be less safety oriented. It is a really good idea to wear eye protection. I would advise you to wear eye protection. You should wear eye protection. It's a not a good example of wearing eye protection. Get this a little bit more wet. There we go. That feels better. Because wearing this right now, it would be a good idea to have eye protection. Because if this stone went flying or little particles came flying off of it, could easily damage your eye. And then just be careful not to get your stone too hot.
Peter just wants to confirm. Did you say the CB6 comes with a felt pad?
It comes with 2 felt pads, one on each end.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Liz wants to know, do you wear a mask when you are using a saw with a cover?
Yes. Like
Okay.
a 10-inch saw, even if it's got I generally am not using the cover, but I'd still wear. Oh, I see right here. This is an example of burning the cerium onto your stone. And you see, I can't wipe that off. That's because I got this too hot and too dry and burnt the cerium on there. So let me get this wet again and see if we can take this off. We might need to take it back to the 3000. I think I'll be able to get it off.
So Liz just wants to know, why do you still need to wear a mask when there's a cover?
Well, if you're talking about like the 10-inch saw, you're still gonna have a good amount of mist that gets into the air. If you're talking about like an 18-inch saw that's got, you're using oil and you got a hood, when you open it, you're still gonna get the mist that comes at your face. I mean, it's one of those things that I could be wrong. You could be perfectly fine without it, but you only get one set of lungs, you only get one set of eyes, why risk it if you can avoid it?
Right.
If you buy a good eye protection, good respirator, they're fairly comfortable. And if you wear them a lot, you get used to it where you don't even notice it being there. Zeke, did the stat cerium burn initially to demonstrate what to correct the problem? Yeah, let's go with that, Ed. I did that so I could show you guys what not to do. We'll go with that. No, I just let it get too dry and burned the cerium on there. I'm just wiping the stone off now, and I'll show it to you guys. And it was not intentional though. It was just I got too aggressive with the wheel and not enough water on there. Exactly, Edward. That big poof of, even though it's cosmetic grade mineral oil that we're using, I mean, we were not designed to breathe that kind of stuff. So even though you may be fine not wearing a respirator, and I know a lot of people don't, it's not going to hurt you to wear a respirator. I appreciate that. Yeah, and it could have particles in it. Same with the water off your cabbing machine. You could get little silica particles in there. That's a pretty cab.
Does cerium work on all cabs or any
It
other?
does not. It does not work on every stone, but it works on a lot. For like Cherry Creek, for example, would not do as good of a job as using diamond on canvas. Oh, see, there you go, Martha. Your lungs can't clear mineral oil out. So you don't want to be breathing in tons of that.
Right.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know people that have died from doing lapidary, breathing too much dust. It is a real possibility. Exactly, Jimmy. You got all that on there. Dawn or litter leader won't help my lungs. I'm confused by that. Oh, kitty litter. I'm still not sure. Are you asking if it? Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know what you're asking, Gregory. I'm glad this is a joke. Yeah, honestly, Jack, we should probably just keep track of every time I polish a stone. We should just polish it on a couple different surfaces, and the team should just record what I did for what stone. That way it actually happens. So we'll have to work on that. Otherwise, it's going to be this fantasy of me sitting down and writing down a list. So we'll work on that for next time. I'll work with the team on that because that's a good idea, Jack. All right, let's do another one and let's talk about the dome a little bit more. And just as a side note, I made that cab, and when I started, the water was about up here, so we used maybe an inch of water at the most. So you quite a bit of room there to cut and polish stuff without having to refill your water if you decide to do the gravity fed. I like how contained the system is. All right, so we'll do this piece right here. You can see the thickness on here. I'll go much slower this time with doing the dome so you guys can see. And I'm just tapping this up here to make sure the water gets distributed evenly. So I'll start by making the edges nice and flat.
Uh, Peter wants to know what other option for water other than gravity fed.
Well, you can plumb it directly into your main water line with a pressure reducer, or you could use something like the freestanding pump and put it in a thing of water and pump it right into your machine so you got nice water pressure. But doing gravity fed is actually probably how I will mainly use this machine because it works really well. All right. So I just started with doing the outer edge, making these nice and flat. Now I'm going to do an angle. So I'm going to put it, just start to touch the edge there because I'm going to do these flat sides. And you can see I'm just working just a tiny angle on each one of these faces. A little bit harder to control, but because I'm looking through the camera. But you can see right there is a very shallow angle, not going very steep on that at all. And if I was doing a round piece, instead of going flat, I would be rocking it and rolling it around, rocking and rolling it while I do the edge. But because this is flat size, I'm just doing that slight taper on there. And then I'm going to slowly work this into the middle here, but I'm going to do just a little bit on each face all the way around. All right, now that I've done it all the way around, you can see that little bit of angle. I'll work it in a little bit more. And the goal is to just get all the way to the center and have a dome so you don't wind up with a flat spot in the center. And because this one has got these nice flat spots that are across from each other, I'll go all the way across now that I've got my edges done nicely. And you can see now I've got this dome going all the way across the top, and it's very shallow. So now I'll move on to the 220. And I'm just gonna go across the top of that dome, working it to get the flat spots and scratches out. And I'm looking at this edge right here to make sure these faces are staying pretty even. I mean, some of them get so precise that I'll actually sit here with calipers and measure each face, but the majority of cabs, that won't matter, especially once they're set. I'm just working the bevel down so it's a little bit thinner and it's staying even with each side.
Tamara wants to Tamara wants to know, so is the angle going to be on what is eventually the top?
Well, so if you look, you can see that these flat spots now that lead right to the center, but there's no flat spot right in the center. It's domed all the way to the center now. When I move to the soft wheel now, I'll clean this up so it's a smooth dome all the way across. But right now I'm just making them even. You can see I'm checking this edge to make sure they're even. It's still a little uneven. So I'll keep working this edge a little bit. But eventually it'll be a nice smooth dome that goes all the way to the center.
And in terms of agate hardness, where would you put this piece?
This is a 7.
Okay.
And then before I move on, because I'm really liking this shape, I'm liking these angles, it looks pretty even. I'm going to do this bottom edge so that they're not scald or chipped up. Just put a very tiny bevel on that so that they're nice and smooth. The other thing that's really important about doing this is if you're silversmithing and you go and push your stone down into the setting, if this is a jagged little edge and catches a piece of solder, it can crack your stone. So by putting that little micro bevel on there, it can prevent you breaking your stone. And you can see just how tiny that is. So I recommend doing that. But I like this shape. This is pretty even. So we'll go ahead and move on to the 280 grit now. And I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to be rocking it a little bit more to get a little bit more of that smoothness. And I'm going to be pushing in a little bit more so the wheel concaves around it. Working out any of those flat spots. Thanks, Jack. And then just to clean it up, I'm going to work these edges, make sure they stay nice and flat, good sharp edge, because this is a sharp shape. So now look at the light as I roll it around. You really don't see any flat spots. You can see the edges where it tapers down to a corner, but you don't see a big flat spot, which is one of the things I look at when I'm holding it up. Now I'll dry it off and look for scratches. Thanks, Scott. That is a good idea, Lynette. Let's do another spin.
Okay.
William. Is William still in the room?
No longer in the room.
All right, spin us again. Paul. Paul in the room?
The room. Put
Put
some.
something in the chat, Paul. Door 1 or door 2? Oh, good timing. Door 1 or door 2?
Door 2.
Door 2. Let me grab that. I was wiping down my computer. Apparently, I sprayed water all over it. All right, door 2. This is lot 4130. Got this nice slab of Sonoran Sunset. Lots of cooperite in there. You'll have fun polishing this. That's lot 4130. Yeah, that would be fun to polish. All right, let me show you this cab dry now. So you can see there, you get this nice smooth dome going across there. There's this little area right there that I don't like. You can see right there on this face. It still looks like there's a little flat spot there. So I'm going to work that a little bit more. But if I'm rocking and looking at the light as it goes around, all the other faces look really good. And then you can also check to see if you got any scratches on the edges here. I did notice on some of the faces, there's still scratches from the 220 grit. So we can clean those up a little bit more. But now that we did the 280, it's really smooth across there. So you don't have those big flat spots. And it's a fairly shallow dome. And then it's also a good time to recap the deals. So you get 1.5 pounds of Idaho Sunset. Normally that'd be at $127.50. Tonight, if you grab it, we'll do it for 100. Great deal on that. We're just about out of that material. And if you buy the CB6, which is this awesome cab machine that I'm using right now, you will get that deal for free. So you get the $127 worth for free. The machine does come with wheels, the end plates with the felt on them. That comes with the light. Great little machine. I'm really excited about this new machine. Oh, that's awesome. You'll love it. It's a really cool machine. Yep. Team, can you check on the website and see if it says if it's included or not? I believe it's included, but I want to make sure I'm giving you accurate information. I'm pretty sure it's included though. Is it extra? Okay, maybe it's extra. Okay, thank you for clarifying. John, will you look up on the website and tell me how much the water kit is?
Sure. Water kit.
The water reservoir is 63.97. I'll tell you what, just to make the deal even sweeter, on top of that, if you want to add the water kit, I'll do it for $40.
Wow.
So if you buy the machine, you get the free rock, and you can add the water reservoir on there for the for the 40. That depends on if he sees this or not.
Paul wants to know, do you have to buy the CB6 tonight for the free sunsets? Some girls conned me into buying one about a week ago.
Uh, I will have to ask John on that, but generally he doesn't go back when we do deals like that on previous purchases. Send me an email and I'll ask John about it. But as a general rule, no.
Yeah.
All right. I'm liking this piece a lot. Beautiful cab. Let's move on to the 600 grit. I am curious, how many people wash their stones or wipe their stones off between each step? Yeah, if it was another deal, especially, I can't do a second deal on top of that. Huh, interesting. Yeah, I guess I should have clarified. Other than just checking for scratches, like, do you clean the stones so there's no contamination? Huh, okay, interesting. Yeah, most of the time I'm not wiping the stone off at all.
So these cabs are beautiful, Zeke. Tamara wants to know, will these cabs end up in a tray at some point?
Probably not.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, a tray, but not on the lifestyle.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Because I get too attached to them. Like, look how fantastic that cab looks. I'll do like the cut on there. I like the shape. See, if I was gonna mount it, I'd mount it like that.
Gregory Wants to know, guess I should ask if any new word on the Everclean pump testing. John said testing was going well, but not sure how long more that means.
I have not gotten an update since the last time John got an update on the pumps. So I do not have a better update for you. I'm waiting for pumps too, actually. We're about to set up the new lab. I'm moving equipment this weekend. And I was hoping we would be able to put Evercleans on all the machines. So I'm with you guys. I'm bugging John almost daily about it. Yeah, I'm polishing the back of the cab. Just working it in kind of circle motions. Not really putting a dome on it, just polishing it.
Carl is asking, Zeke, whatever happened to my Everclean for the shaping machine?
Did you get an Everclean for the shaping machine? It does have two trays in the back. I just don't have drains set up for this right now, so I'm just letting it fill up. And when I'm done later, I will open the valves and let it drain into a bucket. But I need to put actual like tubing on there, which does not come with it. Are you talking about the pump, Carl? Yeah, I like the nice shallow dome on that. I know the pump shipped out. Different pump. This is a really beautiful piece. I love this material. I'll have to check on it. I don't know off the top of my head if it shipped or not. All right. Well, it looked pretty good here. So let's move on to the 1200 grit. If there's pits in there, like this one, I wouldn't call pits. Those are just little druzy pockets in there. So I wouldn't do anything about those. But if there's little things that you want to grind out, then you just got to take it back and rework it. Yeah, it does need an Everclean. It's great to have an Everclean on those. And again, I'm just gonna work this in small circular motions, back and forth, going across the top of the whole piece.
Azzy, can you explain the live sale event store credit thing that we sent?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
You'll have to send me let's see, send me an email, Daniel. I'm not sure what you got. Need to turn our water up a little bit there. Again, I'm looking and making sure I'm hitting every little face, getting that dome all the way across, making it match. No, And I'm working it, I'm not rolling the wheel over these edges because I want them to stay fairly sharp looking. So I'm working the top and then I'm taking it off and working the edges. I'm not just rolling it around this edge here because I want that to stay sharp looking. The belt sanders are we don't have any in stock. I know John said we have some on the water. That should be here, I think, in a couple weeks. But if you have the ability, will you look and see when that's supposed to arrive? I don't know if you can see that or not.
I don't have access to that. Let me just confirm with the team.
Ah, man, I really like this cab. This is one that I had done the shape on the shaping machine to get this shape. I'm really liking how it's turning out. Beautiful piece of confetti. I like that big spray right in the middle there. That's beautiful. And then we'll work the back of it. I'm not totally opposed to ovals. I have made plenty of ovals. I just hate when you see a good stone that someone's put an oval in the worst place on it. No, just a few thousand, Carl. I like this stone a lot. All right, let's work it with the 3,000 and then we can look at it again. Not much will change between the 12 and 3,000 in scratch wise. All you'll see is the polish. So generally, I'm really not checking it on each wheel after I get past 600. But it is good to make sure you're not missing any spots. Thanks, Jimmy. That's pretty good size. I've seen some people that do some pretty insane sized belt buckles and bolo ties. A little bit more water. Yeah,
Mary,
the shaping machine, you put a cam in there and you put your piece of rock in there and it'll grind out a shape for you like this. It'll preform a cab. You can also preform spheres, eggs, wands on it, all kinds of stuff, beads. We should probably do another cut and chat just for the shaping machine. We've talked about it on a couple of them, but none of them were dedicated to the shaping machine. It won't dome the cab. All it will do is make the shape for you, the outline.
Mary wants to know, does the shaping machine takes all the skill out of it?
No, I mean it's a very easy machine to use, but you still got to decide where you're gonna cut and what shape you want to use. You can't polish a sphere on the shaping machine. All it'll do is make the preform. I do like wearing bolo ties. Never really got big into belt buckles, but I do like bolo ties. So yeah, if you use the shaping machine to make a sphere, you would then take it over, grind the little nubs off, and then most of them I would be putting in a sphere machine, but you can also put them in the vibratory tumbler and polish them that way. If you're doing higher end pieces, I would do the sphere machine. If you're doing mass production of like agate spheres, then I would just put them in the tumbler. Yeah, and your hands will be pretty black. All right, so here's the cab. Before the cerium, looking pretty good. Nice sharp shape on there still. That's funny, Mary. All right, bring this over here. Get it wet. Don't need a ton of water. I do like these end plates. And if you notice, I'm only working up halfway on the stone. I'm not working all the way across. So like I'll go halfway and then turn it. And that's so I don't let the felt grab the stone and throw it out of my hand. Put a little bit more water on there. The uh machine does come with the end plates. We do not have them individually yet, so the only ones I have were the ones that are on the machines. But we will be stocking those. I don't know when John's gonna send those over. Oh, I can see the polish on there is starting to look fantastic at that wet look. Just do the edges and the back. Well, this is a brand new machine. This is the CB6. We haven't sold this one before. We're gonna make them for the CB8 as well. But John has not started making these yet. But this is a brand new machine. We've only gotten the first batch of these. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I have not tried that yet. All right, let's wipe this off. See what we got here.
Gregory wants to know, do you prefer flat disc for polishing over a belt polisher?
I can do it either way. No real preference there. What's great about this setup is that you only need one machine. And you have it set up already so that you don't need to change it out. But I've used that on like a belt on like the wet sanding belt before. But I wouldn't set up another wheel just for it. I would just use this little end plate.
And then Donna wants to know, how did you add cerium to the felt wheel? Mix it with water first?
Yes, and I did a video on that before I did the cut and chat, so that you guys will have a video to reference. But all I did was take a little Tupperware dish, and I put a little cerium powder and just a little bit of water and a foam paintbrush, and I mixed it into a paste, and then I used the paintbrush to paste it on there. But I did shoot a video that will go on the unboxing video when we get that posted. I shot that today so that you guys will have that. But it's really easy. And then getting cerium out of these little druzy pockets there, I will just take a textile gun and just hit it with a little bit of water, and that'll come right out. Well, awesome. What else do you guys want to see tonight? What other questions? Yep, textile gun is just a little high-powered water gun. Shoots a little stream of water. I don't think I have any malachite here to polish. We'll have to cut some up for next time. We did some on the last cut in chat. Similar. It's more powerful though. Let's see. Idaho sunset. I may have a little slab of that here. This is a cab that I'm working on the Mookite. I have to finish, but I need to use the belt sander to finish those grooves. Kind of a funky, interesting piece. Let's see. Piece of the Idaho sunset. I could have swore I had a slab of it. Let me go check and see. I may have a slab of it. Which would be fun to make a cab out of. If not, we can just polish the face on a piece because it is a pretty material. Thank you, Kim. But I do like the Idaho sunset. It's great when you get that pattern in there, that flame-like pattern. I like that green, especially when it has the hint of blue in it. Really unusual stuff. We do have to experiment more with cutting it at different angles to get different patterns in there. I'm just digging around in the sand. Well, the oil absorbent. See, because I could have swore we cut a little slab of that. That would be a good cabbable piece. Now the question is just what did I do with it? I am excited. Tomorrow we're gonna start moving stuff into the new space. They're almost done with the electricity. It's really cool. Nice big lab, lots of electricity, and it's a much better space for doing videoing, much better lighting.
Instead of textile gun, Zeke, what about toothbrush?
You can use a toothbrush and some like soapy water. That's fine. I like the textile gun because you're spraying clean water on there. The downside of using like a toothbrush is if you got grit on it or something like that, you could put scratches in your piece. Um, but I've used toothbrushes plenty to scrub little druzy pockets, and generally it's fine. All right. I didn't find a slab, but we can definitely polish a window on one of these pieces. We'll have to cut some more up for another cut and chat and make an actual cab. Because it is fun material, really interesting stuff.
Ed wants to know, is the lighting in the new lab activated by motion detectors as well?
It is not. It is operated on a light switch, thank goodness.
Okay. And then Pina wants to know how long to ship the CB6.
If the order is placed, it should ship out. Um, the next, payment clears, gets processed to a couple days. We got them sitting here, so I mean, if you get one of the ones that's sitting here, if you wait and you get one of the ones that's in the next container, it'll probably be a month or so. But if you order it now, I think we have plenty in stock.
And Alan says, will the cerium oxide and or ZAM polishes give most stones a high enough shine after the 3000 grit wheel, or would it be worth to buy another right hand shaft for my genie and purchase the 8,000, 14,000, and the 50,000 grit wheels?
Generally for most stones, especially if you're doing a lot of agates, you only need to go to 3000 and then cerium, and it'll give you a fantastic polish. Rarely do I take a stone higher than that.
Okay. And then Michael has a request. Can you do a 360 on the machine when you get a minute?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
So I'm just going to do a little window polish on this piece so you can see the pattern in there. I don't think Darwin's on tonight, but that would be fun. You can see that beautiful flame pattern. Like, just picture the cab. You know, something like that in there. How great that would be. That would be a beautiful cab. That's such a pretty piece. Moving it back and forth, changing direction, make sure I get those scratches out and hitting every angle. Let me wipe that off. That's funny. You guys are hilarious. So if you look at that, there's still some pretty deep scratches in there. Yeah, right. We'll put an oval, you know, like right there. So you see that. So if you look in the light there, let's see, let me dry it off a little bit better. So some of those deeper white scratches on there are going to be problematic. So I'll take it down a little bit more. But for the most part, that's pretty good. We're gonna take out scratches on the next step as well. Also, these wheels being brand new, they'll be a little bit more aggressive than when you get them a little more worn. So normally that'd be a little bit more scratch than I'd like, but because these wheels are so new, the 280 grit will take a lot out. Like you see that white scratch there is a pretty deep scratch still. I do really like having the wiper across the whole front there. It makes it really nice. You know, John was in a band. Well, JD, John on here. I have not heard him sing yet.
I am closing my camera now.
We need some background music. Really pretty rock. Yeah, it is really easy to change. It's just 3 screws to change it. We need a song. Hey, Mark. That is a fantastic piece. Thanks, Alan. Now, see here, you can see a little bit better what I was talking about, those deeper scratches. Those areas with really deep white scratches going across there. That spot right in the middle there, terrible. All that has to come out before it can be moved on.
Michael wants to know, do you stock the felt for the wet belt sander?
We should have it on the website. You can still see some pretty deep scratches there, but a little bit better. That will not be one of the prizes tonight. That would be a really good giveaway. But I kind of want to keep it and play with it. Apparently, yeah, that's about right. I wouldn't say I'm bearing down really hard. I'm pushing harder than I would if I was making a cab, but I'm not like shoving the rock in as hard as I can. If I push really hard into it, I mean I can do that, but I wouldn't recommend it. It'll just wear out the wheel faster. You're certainly not going to slow the machine down. I should actually take this back to the 220 grit and get those scratches out. Because there's still some really deep scratches in there. But we are really close to getting him out. So we'll give it a little bit longer, and then if I can't get him out, I'll take him back to the next or to the previous wheel. What do you mean, Kate? That's funny. Or I'm sorry, Kim. Not really. I mean, you'll definitely notice it if you switch back and forth between the two. Thanks, Edward. But just polishing a piece is not going to be extremely noticeable. I mean, if I took this over to the CB8, it would definitely go faster to get those scratches out. But it's probably not something that you'd have a huge notice unless you're switching back and forth from them. You can definitely tell a difference, though. Yeah, see this piece, the scratches are just too deep. It's gonna have to be taken back to the 220 to get these really deep scratches in the middle out. Got most of the scratches out, but still pretty terrible right through the middle there. Let's see, that should make a big difference. Let's wipe that off and see. Yeah, still plenty of scratches to get out. I mean, as a general rule, I wouldn't be polishing pieces like this on a cab machine because it does take a lot longer than if you took this over to like the wet belt sander. Doing cabs is much easier to get the scratches out. Because you can systematically work the dome really easily. Well, because you can systematically work the dome and it's a much smaller surface area as a general rule to get the scratches out of. I mean, I guess if you're doing really big cabs, it wouldn't be a huge difference, but as a general rule, I don't have the patience to sit and polish stuff, specimens on a cab machine. I will take them over and use the belt sander because it'll go so much faster. Even on the CB8, I prefer to do specimens and polish pieces on the wet belt sander than the cab machine. I mean, you definitely can do them on the cab machine. It just will take longer. I've done lots that way. Yeah, still a good amount of scratches in there. Oh, sorry. Looking at the piece. But they are getting finer and finer. You're talking about their dry sander? I looked at that. I've never really seriously used the Richardson Ranch one. I looked at it and thought it was kind of a piece of junk with that like upside down. I did go back to 220, Steven. This is 280 now. Just working out the 220 scratches. I kind of thought it looked like a piece of junk, so I really had no desire to use it. And it would not be a fair comparison. A better comparison would be the bull wheel to the Richardson Ranch because they're both dry units. You can see they're just getting finer and finer. Still working them out. The other reason I like the wet belt sander is because if you are polishing pieces like this, you could grind out and shape your piece and take this over to a 220 belt, silicon carbide belt, and this would take the scratches out in seconds. We do not sell belts that are finer than 600 grit, but there are other places that you can buy them, and it's a standard size. So they're pretty easy to find. That's one of the things I'm working on, John, because the good diamond belts for the wet belt sander are really expensive. I want him to start making them so they're more affordable, and you can go up to the higher grits. But it is on the long list of projects. Yeah, I looked at the machine and I had zero desire to use it. With holding the piece upside down. The wet belt sander is 3-inch by 41.5-inch belts. Almost got him out of there. I'll say I would not wear gloves with that high speed, catch your finger or catch the glove and rip your finger in. I don't. We sell the rubber fingertips, but I haven't tried them. I actually, when I'm doing a lot of cutting, will just wear thick nitrile gloves from like you get at Harbor Freight, like the 7 or 9 mil. I like those. And then after a few hours, they'll break. I've sold a couple cabochons that are in the like $2,000 to $2,500 range. And it's hard to get that kind of money for cabs.
What material?
I've sold some dinosaur bones, some sugilite, some rhodonite that were all in that range or around there. Sugilite's probably the most expensive one. I do make her a lot of stuff, but she knows how to do the lapidary and she can like sit down and polish stuff. She's not big into it. She would just do it to help me with shows. Got most of the scratches out. There's still this one area right here. Like she used to sit down and like red horn coral, she'd polish the ends of a big batch of them for me to take to shows. But like it would not be her idea of a good time to sit down and make cabs for fun. She does like the jewelry though. Thanks, Scott. You know, it's funny actually. The first time we met, she was looking at some jewelry I made, or actually, it would have been the second time we met. She was looking at jewelry that I had made, and she was like, "That is so gaudy and ugly." She didn't like most of it because it was all big turquoise pieces. She thought they were hideous. She has later learned to appreciate some of them, and for the most part, I make her finer, more elegant jewelry, or I buy her really nice jewelry. Like I don't know if Jim Bizak's on, but he made Hannah a really nice set of Schiller Sunstone for Christmas. Still a little bit there, but it's starting to look good. That is the hardest part about polishing something like this on a cab machine versus like the bull wheel or the wet belt sander. It's just the patience to get all the scratches out. This piece is. I don't know why this piece is giving me so much trouble. Oh, that's funny, Ryan. Yeah, it's just patience to get them out, working them out little by little till they're all gone. And the big thing is to not move on until they are gone because they're not going to look better when you're done. But you can see most of them are done. I probably actually be done by now if I hadn't taken it back to the 220. Almost there. There's still a couple spots in there that are not satisfactory. Oh man, there's some pieces, like I did a 6-inch by like 4-inch Koyamito agate, and it was a really big curved piece. And that piece probably took me 4 hours to polish that one agate. It was very complicated and lots of curviness to it. Took a lot to get the scratches out and get that a nice gloss on it. The big key is just to keep working towards getting all the scratches out and not moving on until they're gone. A lot of people get impatient and move on, and then they get frustrated at the end because their piece looks terrible with all the scratches in it. And they just got to be more patient and get the scratches out in the beginning. I see a lot of people would move on, but there's still plenty of scratches in there that are dissatisfactory. Yeah, the wet belt sander would be really fast for taking those scratches out. Uh, I would not be my desirable choice to polish a slab on this, but you could polish a small slab. On this 6-inch machine, I probably wouldn't polish anything much bigger than that. Like even that I think would be kind of pushing it. It could be done, but it would not be desirable. Those slabs would be very easy to polish on the wet belt sander. Wet belt sander, I think, is a very underrated machine. It's one of my favorite polishing tools. Well, see, yeah, you don't want one machine that does everything okay. You want a machine that does something really well, and then to build on that. Yeah, the wet belt sander is really nice. They're just it's the same scratches, just getting finer and finer. I'll show you here in a second. That's so funny, Kate. Let me get it dried real well so you can see him. I don't know, Ryan. We'll have to check on that. See if you look, there's still some scratches right there where the glare is, and then over here, there's some scratches still. There's a little bit right there. That area right there where the glare is right now is the worst. But there are still some right there too. I'm not understanding the question mark. What about the flat lap? Thanks, Ted. You can do dome stuff on there. Some people, that is their preferred method of cabbing. I haven't done a ton with doing domes and stuff on the flat lap. But we'll do a cut and chat on the flat laps eventually and show doing like a cab and polishing pieces on there, but it can be done. Not yet. Where John is working on making some smaller ones. Oh, there you go, Lawrence. Oh, John loves the designing stuff. That's right. We're impatient.
Do we have a small flat laps?
No.
Okay.
Oh, we're just about perfect. That's funny, Ed. I think he's working on an 8 and a 12. Well, I actually thought about moving on from this piece and showing you guys something else, but it is a good reminder that anybody, doesn't matter how skilled you are, has to be patient to get the scratches out. You got to sit here and work your piece, get all the scratches out, and you really can't move on until those scratches are gone.
Mary wants to know, is a wet belt sander the same as an expandable drum sander?
Similar, but the wet belt sander will cut faster because you get that whole belt that goes around there. There's one scratch right there where the glare is that I don't like still. But that is looking pretty good. Yep, I freehand on the wet belt sander too. I'll make cabs and stuff on there. That's how I prefer to get the scratches out. In my shop, I had a wet belt sander and a cab machine set up next to each other so that I could do the shaping and grinding on the cab machine. It's just that one scratch right there that's still bugging me. And then I would take it over to the wet belt sander, get all the scratches and flat spots out, then keep working on it and on the cab machine, and then I'd take it back over and do my final polish on the wet belt sander. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier, Carl, with changing the lubricity. Well, that is why it's important to change your rock, or to check your rock and get it completely dry so that you can see all the scratches. Otherwise, it sucks to do your final polish and then realize you got to go back. I'd much rather spend twice as long here. Thanks, Melissa. I've really never had a problem with needing to clean the wheels. Just having the water running across them has pretty much never been a problem. I don't think I've ever actually cleaned the wheels unless I did something to them that I should not have done. But just grinding like this, I would never wipe down the wheels. I'd just let the water run on it while I'm using it.
Scott wants to know, what is the size of the belt?
It is 3" by 41.5.
Okay.
Oh, that's looking so much better. It's still got one little spot right there. And then we can move on. All right, let's move on to the next wheel. That's looking pretty good. One thing I do like about using the cerium is it does a really good job giving you that wet look. Which is why you can go from like 600 grit to cerium and get that final gloss. It's really good when you're doing like agates. Blowing bubbles. That is interesting.
Patrick says, so you mean skip 1200 and 3000?
Well, I'd still do them if you're on like the cabbing machine. But if you're using like the wet belt sander or the bull wheel, like all the agate specimens you guys see, they get polished up to 600 grit on the bull wheel, which is done dry. And then you buff them with cerium, and that's how John gets that wet look on there. So you could take this and just buff it with the leather and cerium and get that final polish on there because it looks pretty good now. You can see right there. And that really only works on harder things like agates. But yes, you could go to 600 and then cerium. That looks pretty good. Those lines right there are just from the mud from me wiping my hand across it.
We have a request from Steve. Can you do it to demonstrate?
Sure.
Sounds good.
So that's 600 is what I'm on right now. And then I'll take this one over to the wet belt sander so we can use the leather. Because I just have felt on this machine. I don't know how well the felt will do. The leather will do a really good job for doing it straight from 600 to polish. Generally, when we do it, we stop at 600. That's with silicon carbide. I don't think I've tried it with diamond, but it should work just as good. You can see that's pretty good polish on there. Let me wipe it off better than with just my hands. So you can see the polish that's on there now. Let's take this over to the wet belt sander. I guess I can leave that on. It's not totally dark in here. I just gotta grab an extension cord for it. I'll be so excited to not have to run around looking for extension cords to polish stuff. All right, let's see. Oh, we're even on the slow speed. That's perfect. Let me just get another one of these lights on. And then this leather wheel is already charged with cerium. So I'm just going to take a spray bottle and spray some water on there. I don't want to soak the wheel. I just want to get enough on there that it's not going to be blowing cerium dust. That's actually more than John would put on there. Then I'm just going to work the piece. Get it, because this is a nice hard agate, I'm going to get it decently warm. You don't want to get it so hot that you can't touch it. And on the cerium on this leather wheel, you want it to feel like it's pulling the rock. So you got to get the right amount of water that you should be able to hold on to the rock still, but the wheel should feel like it's pulling on it, and that's when the cerium is doing its best. If that makes sense. It makes a lot more sense if you're standing at it using the wheel, because you can feel it. And then every so often I'll just check it with my thumb to make sure I can still touch it and it's not too hot.
Gregory is asking, can you get a leather disc for the CB6?
We will have them eventually, and you could probably do this on the CB6, but I like the wet belt sander wheel because it's a little bit bigger and I like the leather. Um, we don't currently have the leather for it. It just has the felt on there, but you could put the leather on there. I mean, it's pretty easy if you just want to take one of the felts off and just use some contact cement and put some leather on one side. Nothing, I don't know if it really makes a difference, but I've heard that elk leather is the best. I've never actually put all the elk or all the leather side by side to test. What will make a big difference is the cerium oxide you use. What I'm using is the A grade semiconductor grade cerium oxide, and it is fantastic. All right. So now you can see it has that wet look to it. That's just from the cerium. In fact, you can see myself in there.
Ed wants to know, you're spraying with a narrow stream earlier. Why not more of a of a fan spray?
Because I didn't change the sprayer. There's no particular reason that I did the stream versus a more mist. You could do either. But there was no methodical stream versus mist on that.
And then how do you get the elk to stand still?
That would be a sarcastic question.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Got that.
Oh, it's pretty good. Hit it with a very big stick. Oh gosh. That's hilarious. Awesome. Well, what else do you guys want to see? Or what else have I not shown you that you wanted to learn tonight that we need
Uh,
to cover?
Gregory wants to know, how clean do you make the machine when you're done for the night?
Me, I make it look not that great. What I'll get to is drain the water out because right now it's full of water and wipe the whole thing down would be ideal. But we are working on my skills of organization and cleaning at the moment. So that's a good reminder that I do need to wipe the machine down.
Okay. And Mark wants to know, why is his cerium white and yours is tan?
Did you order it from us, Mark?
Yes.
Because you got the AA grade, which is so the double A grade, and what I'm using is just A grade. So you actually got a higher grade of cerium than what I'm using.
Mm.
For most things, the A grade is just fine. There's no problem with it because John does not. Most places, if you order pink cerium, it used to be that pink cerium was the dirty stuff that you didn't want. But the stuff that John uses is still semiconductor grade. So it puts a fantastic polish on there. I pretty much always use the just the A grade. The only time that I would switch and use the double A grade is if I was doing something more, like optical quartz or rutilated quartz, something really high end, that's optically clear. I don't know why it's pink versus uh the white. I'd have to ask John on the stuff that he gets. Awesome. Any other questions? Anything else you guys need to see for the night?
Did you fill the water bucket on the 6?
So on the 6-inch machine here, I filled it up so it was about there when we started, and I've used maybe a little less than half. There, I go give you a side shot of where I filled it up to. So you could actually cab for quite some time on this machine without filling it up. The cerium oxide, 5 pounds, probably last you, well, I don't know, 1 pound usually lasts me about a year. So about 5 years if you're using it as generously as I do. I tend to put way too much cerium on there. This machine, I gotta talk to John about it because when I opened this one up, it did not come with the 6 millimeter tube. We do sell it, but I just cut a 9-inch piece of 6 millimeter tube to put on there. Yes, you are. Yeah, you don't need much cerium. I tend to use too much of it, but it drives John a little crazy how much I use. So you don't need to use as much cerium as I use. I tend to be generous with it. Oh, I do believe Mike asked for a walk around on the whole machine. So you'll have to pardon the mess and all the wires. But we'll walk you around the whole thing here and all my paper towels in places. So when you do get it, you do mount the light on here. Really easy, it's just those 4 screws. And then you gotta put the nuts and washers on the water reservoir here. That bracket, really easy to do. And then these are just quick disconnects, so that's really easy to put on. This one has a half horsepower. The 8-inch is a 1 horsepower. Um, it's warm. I mean, it's not so hot. I mean, like I can put my hand right on it, and it's not too hot to hold my hand there. But it is good and warm.
Same motor on 6 and 8?
No, the 6-inch is a half horsepower. The 8-inch is a 1 horsepower.
And will the water bucket stand fit the CB8?
There is nowhere currently to mount the CB8 or the water stand. Like the CB6 comes with it already installed, so it's easy to mount on there. Um, but you could put it on the CB8. You would just have to drill the holes and put your bolts in to mount it. But this is really easy. I mean, it took me a minute to install it on this one because it's already drilled and has the bolts installed. You just got to put the nuts on and tighten it down, the nuts and washers. Let's see. Do you like the CB8 or the CB6 better? Uh, that is a really hard question because I love them both. If I could only have one, I would probably take the CB8 just because I prefer the 8-inch wheels. If I was just doing this for fun and had to pick between features, I think I actually like the CB6 more. I like that it's straight down here and doesn't have the taper. I like the valves on top, and you got the one on extra on the end here. I like the stainless steel splash guards more instead of the silicon ones. So I would definitely would want those upgrades. I also really like the wiper across the front here. So if I had to pick based on features of the machine, I would pick the CB6. What is the knob underneath the power? This is to take the machine apart. You just can undo these little screws instead of having like so you can take the whole thing, the whole top off here. I haven't undone all three of these to see if the whole thing just lifts off. Well, we can see. Oh, okay, yep. So if you undo those, it gives you access to your water supply. You can see the manifolds in there. You can also grease your bearings. There's your belt down in there. So that's all those are, is just to hold the top on there. If you wanted to change your wheels out really easily, it gives you a ton of access to the machine here. That is a pretty cool feature. I didn't realize John had done that.
Neil is asking, will the water bucket stand fit the CB8?
There's currently no place to mount it. You would have to drill your own holes to mount it on there. But I don't see any reason why you couldn't drill your own holes and put it on there if you so desire to drill holes in your machine. I would oh, I can't remember the brand of it. I'll have to ask John what grease he recommends. What I used before was basically just the same stuff you would use on a tractor, but I think he has a good one that he recommends. I'll have to ask him. But yeah, isn't that such a cool machine? Yeah, you could put the centered wheels in the center here, so that you don't have as much weight out on the end. That's not a bad idea. These plated wheels really aren't that heavy. It's when you get the centered wheels that are really heavy. I used to grease the bearings about once a week, if I was using the machine 8 hours a day. If you're using it maybe a few hours here, in there, maybe once every month or so. If you're only using the machine, maybe once a month or once every 2 weeks, maybe every 6 months to a year. Yep, there are two drains in the pan, and I'll show you on the back here. You can see it looks like half-inch NPT on one right there and another on the back here. I just don't have any hose to run the water out. So after the cut and chat tonight, I will drain the machine into a bucket. Yeah, it is on my personal machine that I had when I was doing cabs, I put the centered wheels towards the middle. You don't have to, but it does help balance it out. On the CB8 that we're going to put in the lab, I'll probably set it up so that the centered wheels are towards the center. And then I'll put an expandable drum on there so I can use the silicon carbide belts on there. Oh, yes, of course, Mark. That would be a fun mess to deal with. And I do love these side plates where you got the brass screws that go in place. They just slide right in there. You can screw them on. They also look really nice too, having the stainless steel end plate on there. I'm very excited about that. Yeah, we'll do one last spin tonight.
So one question from Donna. Is it 6 millimeter tubes for the drain too?
No, the 6 mm is just the water line that feeds your wheels. It's half inch, 1/2 inch NPT drain out the back. So what I would get is two little barb adapters so that you can slide your hose over the end of use like a hose clamp, and then you can run your tube down to the drain. Kind of. Well, I'll show you what we have on the CB8 so you can see what I'm talking about. So this one is 3/4 inch, but you can see you just get this barb fitting, slide the tube over it, and then you can run your tube down to a drain. This one's not hooked up to anything right now, but that's how you would do those so that you can control where the water goes. Because we use this recirculation thing. Right now I have this set up for the drop saw, but we put the dirty water in this side and the baffles clean it out pretty good so that you can pump your clean water from that side. I really like this tank for running the drop saw because then I don't need a pump inside of it and I don't have to drain the mud, all the mud out as often. You can let it build up quite a bit more in there before you have to clean it out. Versus if you mount the pump on the inside, you have to clean it more regularly.
Richard wants to know, I got cut off after I asked the drip device for the sphere machine. I got kicked off until now. Did they sell them?
Do we sell what?
The drip device for the sphere machine.
Yeah, I can show you real quick. So on the high-speed sphere machine, we have this valve right here that you just open that up and let it drip on your sphere. On the low-speed sphere machine, it comes with this reservoir that you put up there, and then you got this valve here that you can open and let it drain right onto your sphere there.
And then Jim wants to know, I like how the CB6 doesn't have the big doghouse in the middle, more room to work. Is John going to change the CB8 to match that design?
Potentially, that's one of the things that he's looking at changing. It's just a structural issue. Because there's a lot more weight to the CB8. So it's one of the things that he's looking at the possibility of doing.
All right. We have no pending questions.
Yeah, it does break up your flow. And what I would do personally is I would put on here, what grits they are, write it on above with like dry erase or something, or actually I use Sharpie, but then you got to clean it off with alcohol or something to get it off. And you could even write it, step 1, 2, 3, or however, step 1, step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get used to it after you do it that way a little while. But it is definitely like if someone comes and uses your machine for the first time, it may throw them off. Oh, there you go. Silver paint pen. That works. Ah, you're very welcome, Gregory. The back plate for the wet belt sander, I can show you. That's what he had. Is this bracket, it bolts on here, and then you put this back plate right here so you can do flat faces right here versus having the wheel at the bottom. So you can use this flat area here or have the curved wheel. Oh, I'm so glad, Donna. Always happy to help.
And our high grit wheels always on soft wheels.
Yes. Yep, you always want the higher the grit. You after I mean personally I wouldn't use a hard wheel after 220. There's just not a need for it. Well, someone might have a need. I don't have a need for one. I guess I shouldn't say there's no need. Awesome. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can do our last spin and we'll call it a night. Always happy to help, Ed. And just as a last reminder, do you want to throw the deal up in there?
Okay.
So just as the last reminder, I'll show you this piece because we polished this one. This is a piece of the Idaho sunset. Normally a pound and a half would be 127. Tonight we're doing an awesome deal for you where you get a pound and a half for $100. If you buy the CB6 tonight, you can get the Idaho sunset included for free. And if you want to add the water kit on there instead of the 63, whatever it was, 63 and some change, we'll do it for $40. That's a pretty awesome deal. It's fun to harass Carl, though. Awesome. All right, well, let's do our last spin. William. Is William in the room?
Yep, he's in the room.
Put something in the chat, William.
There we
Door
go.
number 1. You're very welcome, Jesse. Let me grab it. Oh, this is a killer piece right here. I get this wet. Nice slab of the Turkish Delight. Good 1/4-inch slab. You'll have fun polishing that. Beautiful piece. Congratulations. That's lot 1702. Thanks all. As always, please leave us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate them. It's always awesome encouragement and it does help our business, so we appreciate them. Team, we put that link in the chat. Let's see, today's Thursday, so tomorrow night we'll have some more awesome rough rock. Lots of cool things to show you guys, and it'll be fun. We'll have a blast. Thanks everybody. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hope you learned a lot, and we'll see you tomorrow for our Rough Rock live sale. Have a great night. Bye-bye.